chickadee. We are going to be reading the book A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon, all right? Before we get started, I want to talk about what do readers need to be doing while they're reading? What are some things that we do while we read?
We like if they're surprised, you make a surprise voice.
Oh, good. So sometimes when we're reading, we change our voices by the way that the author wrote the story. Okay. What are some things that we think while we're reading?
We think what's gonna happen next.
Okay, you're always kind of thinking what might happen next based off what's happening right now. That's good. So you're always kind of trying to figure out what the story is talking about, right? You're thinking what's going on and what might happen next. And so what I want us to work on today is thinking about what we're thinking and what questions we might have to ask, because questions while we're reading might help us figure out what's going to happen next in the story, okay? Sometimes this helps me a lot whenever I'm reading a story that I'm not really familiar with, and I'm like, wait, what in the world did that just say? And I have to go back and I read it again, and then I go, okay, this is what it told me, and then this is what I think, and this is what questions I have. Does that make sense? So we're going to use this chart today. So I think are what we know based on what they just told us, and I wonder is questions we might have about what's going to happen next.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So let's look at the front cover. What do you think a bad case of stripes means? If we just take away the stripes part, have you ever heard someone say, you got a bad case of this?
No.
Never?
No.
What if I said, you got a bad case of the chatterbox? Then what would that mean? If I said, you got a bad case of the flu, what would that mean?
You're really sick.
Okay, so that would mean that you are really sick. So what does a bad case of mean?
What bad? What bad do you have?
What something bad is happening to you? Okay, so she has a bad case of stripes, all right? So what do you think is happening to her? What do we think has happened to this little girl?
I think she has a fever, and then her head starts hurting, and then she feels like she's different colors.
Okay, so let's put that down. Let's write that on our thing. So I think that's a really good observation because she has a thermometer in her mouth, right? So we know that when people are sick, they use their thermometer to take their temperature.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think she's sick, and it doesn't have to be anything too long. She's sick and turned stripes. Okay. Okay, so what questions might we have then about this before we get started on the book? What questions might you have about her being sick and turning stripes?
My question is about how did she turn?
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Stripes?
How in the world did she? You don't have to say how in the world. You can say how did she get this illness? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the first couple of pages for you, okay? And then you're going to read the back half of the book out loud to me, okay? But we're going to be doing this together when I'm reading, and then whenever we get to the part where you start reading, then you're going to start doing this by yourself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So let's flip to the first page. All right. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed. So, what I think, okay, about this page is I think it's really sad that she cares so much about what other people think, because that's probably pretty stressful. If you have to try on 42 outfits before school, you're probably really stressed out about what you look right? So I'm going to write, I think it is sad she cares so much about what people think. All right, I put like a little squiggly line in between the first one and that one, just so it kind of helps you separate it. There you go. All right, and so my question is, why is she screaming? Because that's how they end the page, because then you're like, well, what in the world happened, right? So why does she scream? Hold on, I'm just like got nervous really quick. Okay, good. I was just making sure that it was still recording, because I just got like a little scared for like a second that it wasn't recording anymore. Oh no, girl, we're all good. Okay. All right, let's flip to the next page. Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. Oh my heavens, she cried. You're completely covered with stripes. This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. Do you feel all right? She asked. I feel fine, Camilla answered. But just look at me. You get back in bed this instant, her mother ordered. You're not going to school today. Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say, and she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. All right? So for this one, I'm going to write that I think that she must have something kind of like chicken pox. Only because...
How would you get rainbows?
Yeah, because like that's like the only other kind of sickness I think of that turns your skin color. So I'm going to put, I think, maybe chicken pox? But I don't know for sure. I'm just saying, just based off her turning colors, that's the only kind of sickness that I think. And now, I'm going to write now, she has more to worry about.